All right, welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to go over the NBA for January 22nd. And as you can see, the odds are on the screen, with Orlando being a sizable favorite. And we're going to start with Charlotte versus Orlando. As you can see, plus 198 and minus 240. Those are obviously synonymous with each other. Whenever you see minus 240, you're normally going to see plus 198, sometimes plus 200, sometimes plus 196, but you see plus 198 more so because the odds are synonymous with each other. 6.5 point underdogs are the Hornets at minus 112 cost. 6.5 point favorites are the Magic at minus 108 cost. Over under 229.5, minus 106 going over, minus 114 going under. Now, when you look at the minus 240 for Orlando and where the splits are now, you're going to notice this 80% of the betting is going with Orlando and 73% of the money is this is currently early Thursday morning, 73% of the money going with Orlando. Now, that is up from about 71% of the money and 70% of the betting. So Orlando has gone up significantly on the betting, 2% on the money line. And thus, this minus 240 increased from minus 235 and minus 230, negative 230. Now, with that being said, and they're increasing these odds, look decent for the home team minus 6.5 at minus 108 cost, but we're always going to focus on the higher costs because you got to think like a bookie. Currently, minus 112 for the Hornets on the spread, 6.5 points as an underdog. 41% of the betting, 42% of the money. 41% of the betting, 42% of the money. Now, those odds have remained consistent, and so has this minus 112, minus 108, since these odds have established themselves at 6.5 points. With that being said, Orlando could still take that minus 108, even though the minus 112s hit about 55% to 45% on the minus 108. Orlando looks decent at home, and they're getting 59 and 58% of the money on the spread. 59% betting. If let's say it flips. Let's say minus 112 goes to the Magic. Guaranteed the Magic are going to take this minus 6.5 as long as they're ahead here on the spread. As long as it stays the same, Magic look decent at home in this one. They look decent at home only because of that. Now, where it gets tough is if these odds change here. Forget the money line. Charlotte could win if, let's say, this plus 6.5 turns into plus 5.5. Cost go to minus 118 Charlotte, minus 104 Orlando. And they let's say since it goes down, that means Orlando would have to increase. So that would be about 64%. Let's say they go about 64% betting and money on the spread. Then you would go with Charlotte across the board, obviously, as a dog. But as it currently stands, you would stay put. Orlando looks decent. Over unders at 229.5. 63% on the betting, 60% of the money going over. And with that minus 106 to minus 114, now the minus 106s hit it's about 51.49. So it's about even on the minus 106, minus 114. I would lean toward, in this game, joining the public and go with that over, however. I would go with that over. Houston versus Philadelphia. Minus 134 for the Rockets, plus 114 for the 76ers. That minus 134 for the Rockets is getting 80% of the money. 70% of the betting. And with that being 70 and 80%, that is up from about 74, 75% for Houston in the last few hours to now 80% of the money. Betting has stayed about the same, around 69, 70%. It's right now at 70%. Minus 134 to plus 114. If you see, I will say this, Houston looks decent, but they're going to have to, more than likely, especially throughout the day since they're getting so much money right now, these odds are going to have to increase somewhat for Houston, for you to be confident in a Houston pick. In other words, this minus 134 is going to have to turn into minus 145 or minus 142, minus 140, something like that. Philadelphia increases to plus 114, especially if they maintain this around 80 percentile. Now, more than likely, they won't maintain this 80 percentile. Let's say they go down to 68%. 68% of the money. This plus 114, minus 134, you would have to look at the, if they go down to 68%, you would have to look at this minus 134 increasing as well. Whether they win or lose, you will have to look at the minus 134 increasing. Houston looks decent, but Philadelphia can sneak this if they maintain this 80-20 or some range around it while maintaining this minus 134 plus 114. So basically in the naked, Philadelphia could take this game. But that's going to change. Obviously, the odds are going to change as game time approaches. This is still early Thursday morning. Plus 114 looks decent in this one. And I would be confident in going with Houston early. But if those odds manipulate themselves, if these splits manipulate themselves while these odds maintain, go with Philadelphia across the board. Minus 112 going with the Rockets at minus 2, negative 2. 2 point favorites, that is, for the Rockets. 72% of the money, 74% of the betting. Going with the Rockets, 2 points. So basically, it is somewhat of a pick'em game. Whoever you pick on the money line, you would pick on the spread as well. More than likely. You can still pick either way, but still. I would lean toward Philadelphia, but the odds would have to change here if I'm going to pick Houston. This minus 134 plus 114 would have to change if I'm going to pick Houston in that one. Over 221.5 minus 110 cost going over. Under 221.5 minus 110 cost. 83 and 80% going with the over. 83 betting, 80% of the money going with the over. People expecting a higher scoring game in this one. And with this one, let's see, 221.5 minus 110. 221.5 minus 110. I would lean toward that over and joining the public in that over. Only if this minus 110 holds up on the cost. If not, then go with the under in any situation if these odds change. Especially since they get such a high amount. The over is getting 83 and 80%. All right, Denver versus Washington. Minus 220 for Denver. Plus 184 for Washington. Let's see where these splits are. Scroll down. Continue to scroll down. All right. 86% and 85% going with Denver on the road at minus 220. Minus 220. Minus 5.5 at minus 110 cost there. Going with on the spread. Let's see where the splits are. All right. 77 and 55. So Denver is pretty much dominating the betting on the money line and the spread. Money is only getting 55% on the spread, though. 85% of the money on the money line. So people putting heavy money on Denver on the road. Now, I'm going to make a case. It's easy to go with Denver, but I'm going to make a case for Washington possibly to win this game. Plus 184 for Washington. Let's say they hold. Let's say this goes down to betting 80%, money 78%, which means that'll be 22% money on Washington and 20% betting on Washington on the money line. Now, that is going to have to, this plus 184 minus 220 is going to have to go up. It's going to have to go up, which means both will go up in their respective directions. Minus 220 would have to go to the higher negative. Washington will go to the higher positive. But there is a chance that Washington could go to the lower negative, but they would have to significantly change these splits here. 15%, that's not enough. If it goes down and that 15% turns into, let's say it turns into 12%. 12%. While going down to plus 175, something like that, then you would go with Washington in this game across the board. As it currently stands, Denver looks like a decent pick early. Once again, this is early, but I would go with Washington on the spread at that minus 110 cost, especially at that 55%. Everything's even in this game, even a total over 231.5 minus 110, under, same thing. So I would go with Wizards on the spread in this one, especially the way they're moving these odds. Over under 231.5. 73 and 74% betting and money. 73 and 74% betting and money. All right, over 231.5. If. So people putting heavy money on that over. All right, under 231.5, minus 110 cost. If you see the under, we're going to focus on the under since it's getting the least amount and it's even at minus 110. If the under were to take it, you would have to see that go to either minus 105, minus 120, or minus or plus 100. Those are the top three that hit the most on the totals and the spreads. Minus 105, minus 120, and plus 100. If the under gets any one of those, easy pick. However, if the over gets it, you would have to look at the adjustments on the total. Does it go over? Does it go to 232.5? Does it go to 230.5? Something like that. Then you would go the way they adjust that. If it goes over some more, then you would pick the over. If it goes under some more, then you would pick the under. So that's how that game would go on the total. All right. Warriors versus Mavericks. Minus 184 to plus 154 on the cost. Minus 4.5 and minus 110 cost. Plus 4.5 and minus 110 cost for the Mavericks. All right. Warriors are a favorite. Over under 232.5. We'll get to that in a moment. Minus 106, minus 114. We'll get to that in a moment. 66% going with Golden State on the betting, 76% going with Golden State on the money. Minus 184. In that instance, in this instance, I would join the public and go with that. Go with the Warriors just based off the way they move those odds. It was minus 190, then it was minus 200 for a little while, for briefly, very, very briefly. It was minus 200 a few hours ago. Then it went to minus 190. Then it went to minus 184. And simultaneously, the Mavericks money line went down as well. So plus 170 went down to plus 154. And so on and so forth. So in that one, I would join the public and go with the Warriors. Go with the Dubs, 53%, 59% money, 53% betting, 59% money. On the spread, going with Golden State, 4.5 points, minus 110 cost there. And in this one, I would go with the Warriors as well, especially with that minus 110 cost getting 53 and 59%. Now, once again, this is still early. As long as Golden State is at even or higher, and they're getting most of the splits, go with the Warriors on the spread. Any other way, go with the Mavericks. Pick the Mavericks. Over under 232.5, 74% and 78% betting to money, going with the over in this one. Minus 106 cost going over, minus 114 going under. And the way they're adjusting those odds, under 114, probably trying to entice you to go with that over, join with that over. I would lean toward the under in this one. Minus 232.5, I would lean toward the under, especially as long as they maintain the higher total at minus 114 cost. Now let's go to the next one. All right, Chicago versus Minnesota at the top. Plus 310, minus 390. Plus 310, minus 390. Now, with that minus 390, let's see. going with the plus 310 for Chicago, minus 390, 83 and 84%. So people betting heavily on Minnesota. People betting heavily on Minnesota in this game. Minus 390 plus 3. Now that has increased. It was minus 380 and it was minus 370 early, with basically right after the opening odds released. Then it went down to minus 370. Now it's minus 390 and they're getting most of the money. So the way these odds are moving, always beware of home favorites. But the way they're moving these odds, Minnesota should take care of business in this one. However, with the spread at plus 9.5, minus 112 cost, people are going to be willing to put more money on Chicago. As you can see here, 53% of the money going with Chicago, 47% betting going with Chicago on the spread. And they're getting that minus 112 cost. As long as they maintain that minus 112 cost or minus 120, minus 105, or plus 100, go with Chicago on the spread. Over under 239.5, minus 110 cost even there. 63 and 64% going with that over. And I would join the public and go with that over in this one. It's probably the highest total of the day, tied for the highest total of the day. All right. San Antonio, sorry about that. San Antonio versus Utah. Minus 670 for San Antonio, plus 490 for Utah. 13-point favorites are the Spurs at minus 110 cost. 13-point underdogs are the Jazz at minus 110 cost. Let's see where the splits are. Let me scroll down. All right. 85% and 77% going with the Spurs on the ML, and 48 and 48% going with the Spurs on the spread. Minus 670 is getting 85 and 77% going with the Spurs. 670. All right. Minus 670. And they're getting most of that money, and they're on the road. Now, if San Antonio's at home, I would challenge that and go with Utah, especially since they're getting that higher total. But the way this is going, I would lean towards San Antonio there. Now, whenever you see a high total, a high cost on the money line for a favorite on the road, and their cost is dead even, minus 110 here, minus 110 on the cost for the Spurs, I would lean toward going with San Antonio across the board. Go with San Antonio across the board. Trying to entice you, especially with that high spread, trying to entice you to go with Utah. I would not take that bait, at least not early, especially based off that even minus 110 to the massive favorite Spurs on the road. But the totals at over under 238.5, minus 110 cost even, over under. Now, the over is getting 67% of the betting, 69% of the money. And in this instance, let's see, minus 110 even, I would join the public and go with that over in this one. All right, sorry about that. Lakers versus Clippers, minus 102, minus 116 for the Clippers, minus 102 for the Lakers. So basically a pick 'em game. Whoever you pick on the spread, money line, you would pick on the spread. Minus 110 even there. Over unders at 224.5. Minus 106 cost going over. Minus 114 going under. Now that minus 106 here for the Clippers. Minus 106 here for the Clippers. Minus 116. Minus 102 is getting 66% and 63%. Sorry about that. 66% going with the Lakers and 63% going with the Lakers on the road. Now, normally in these kind of games, especially since LeBron has been with the Lakers, they win these kind of games, especially when they're a pick 'em game against a crosstown rival. So, in this instance, I don't think this one will be any different, as I think they will take the advantage here. It will probably more than likely be flipped. It will probably be minus 116 LA Lakers, minus 102 Clippers. At home, I would go with the Lakers in that instance, 63% and 60% on the betting. 63% and 60% on the betting. All right. Going with the spread. So basically, whoever you pick on the money line, you would pick on the spread. Minus 110 cost even there. Minus 110 cost even there. As long as that stays the same, whoever you would pick on the money line, you would pick on the spread. Pretty self-explanatory, especially when you see how the odds are laid out. Over under 224.5. Over is getting that minus 106 cost. 79% and 81% going with that over. 79% and 81% going with the over in this instance. Now, hold on, let me move this up. 79.81 going with that over. Minus 106 cost. Now the minus 106 does hit 55.45 on average above the minus 114. And I would join the public. Hold on. I would actually fade the public in this one. I would fade the public in this one, go with that under minus 114, because I think those costs are going to flip. I think these costs are going to flip. I think the minus 106 is going to go under, minus 114 going over. And I think those costs are going to flip on that total. All right. Miami versus Portland. Plus 102 to minus 120. Somewhat of a pick'em game. 1.5 point underdogs are the Heat at minus 110 cost. Minus 1.5 favorites are the Trailblazers. Over under 239.5. Minus 110 cost even. Let's see where the money is going. 45% going with the Heat. 47% going with the Heat. All right. Plus 102, minus 120. Now, look out if Miami goes to the negative direction consistently. If they end up consistently in the negative direction, especially as the day goes on, you would have to pick them to win this game. You would have to pick them to win this game. 1.5 point favorites are the Trailblazers. Minus 110 costs going with with both teams. And that minus 120 for the Trailblazers, that looks precarious, because if Miami goes to that negative, they're going to take this game. So look out for Miami even on the spread. And what are they getting on the spread? 51.53%. 51.53%, more than they're getting on the ML. So just keep that in mind. Over under 239.5. Minus 110 cost even. Let's see where the money is going. Obviously to the over, 61-63. People are expecting a higher scoring game. And in this instance, 114, 143. In this instance, I would go with that. I would lean toward that over in this one. I would lean toward that over and join the public in this one. Very high total. But watch how they adjust. If they go under, let's say they go under 230, we'll go 238.5. If they go lower than that, while these costs adjust, let's say the under goes to minus 112, over goes to minus 108, I would fade the public and go with that under. But yeah, this has been NBA for January 22nd. And yeah, all picks and props will be on the Patreon. We will be going more aggressive with sports. We will be doing insights and injuries and really going through the decode of it instead of just posting picks. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Pray every day. I've been Scott.